If you saw the latest episode of All Steelers Talk, you know that my prediction for the Pittsburgh Steelers versus the Green Bay Packers is 21-17 Pittsburgh. Now, I stand by that prediction one day out of their Week 8 matchup, but there was one factor, there was one aspect of this matchup that I did not really consider whenever I made that prediction on the All Steelers Talk show. And while again I stand by what I said, it is casting a little bit of doubt and it is opening up a whole line of discussion for this latest episode of Puntori's Playbook because I think the Pittsburgh Steelers have a massive problem that could be exploited whenever they take the field at Acrisure Stadium against the Green Bay Packers. Thank you so much for joining another episode here. I hope everybody's having a great weekend, and I hope everybody is pumped and excited for this Week 8 contest, which is sure to be an exciting one. I'm Jacob Puntori, and I am back, and I have something to share for the Pittsburgh Steelers. They have a massive problem going up against tight ends in the NFL this year. And as I was looking into what this entire matchup will entail, I really thought that this is going to be a return to a stingy form of football between these two teams, both sides desperately needing a win. The Pittsburgh Steelers trying to take another step forward in the AFC North, the Green Bay Packers trying to separate themselves or establish dominance in a very crowded NFC. It has a ton of meaning for both sides. You have Aaron Rodgers going up against his former franchise in what is continuously described as a not revenge game, but we all know it certainly is. But maybe it's not going to be Aaron Rodgers and the offense that makes the difference on Sunday. And on Sunday Night Football, it's probably going to come down to the Pittsburgh Steelers defense. And they have some concerns that we know. Joe Flacco and that potent Cincinnati Bengals offense showed us so many flaws and holes and gaps in the Steelers defense, but the one that did not emerge or seem as apparent in that loss was how poorly the Pittsburgh Steelers are playing against tight ends this year. And so I have the glasses on today. I have a ton of data and stats in front of me as well that makes me a little bit worried about this matchup against the Green Bay Packers tomorrow. The Pittsburgh Steelers have allowed a lot of yards, receptions, and damage from tight ends this year. Let's go on a little bit of a journey, if you will. Let's start with week 1. It's not a bad week at all. They allow a pretty incompetent duo of New York Jets tight ends to accumulate just 3 receptions and 36 yards on 3 targets. It's excellent. No problem at all. You move on to Seattle. We see a little bit of an error. We see a little bit of a flaw, and they give up their first touchdown. They give up 57 yards to 2 tight ends and Elijah Arroyo and AJ Barner. And then week 3, you see just the floodgates opening. Hunter Henry, a notably respected tight end in the NFL, picks up 8 receptions for 90 yards and 2 touchdowns, and a fellow veteran in Austin Hooper adds on another 3 receptions and another 28 yards, or 2 receptions, for 28 yards. It's a big day. They go to Dublin, Ireland. They take on the Minnesota Vikings. They come back into a more consistent and understanding defense and allow less than 40 yards to TJ Hawkinson. And then against Cleveland coming out of the bye, they give up over 100 yards in 100 receiving yards to Harold Fannin Jr. and David Njoku. And then against the Cincinnati Bengals, they give up almost 45 yards again just to Noah Fant alone. In total, the Steelers have allowed 403 receiving yards to tight ends. That is the 5th most in the NFL so far this year. That's in addition to the 36 receptions. Their 11.2 yards per reception allowed to tight end is the 6th most in the NFL this year. 67.2 yards per game allowed to tight ends so far. That's the 3rd most in the NFL. And the 4 touchdowns they have allowed is also the 3rd most in the NFL. Not great. Not an impressive string of numbers, not an impressive string of statistics. The Green Bay Packers come into Acrisure Stadium with a pretty impressive tight end themselves, Tucker Kraft, the 2023 third-round pick out of South Dakota State. He is coming off of a 700 receiving yard season in 2024 with the Packers, his second in the league. Through 6 games, he is on an incredible pace. He is the second most targeted receiver in Green Bay behind Romeo Dobbs. He's been targeted, I believe, 32 times, and he has 23 receptions for 326 yards and 4 touchdowns. You look at that, you look at what the Steelers have done against this string of tight ends, some impressive, as well as I mentioned previously, the Hunter Henrys, the Noah Fants, Harold Fannin Jr. looks to be quite the player in the NFL. There's some impressive players in there, but then you have the surefire misses. You have the fact that they allowed almost 60 yards receiving to the Seattle Seahawks tight ends, which is just not acceptable. You have the fact that they allowed over 100 yards to the Cleveland Browns despite the talent in that tight end room. It's just unacceptable. Tucker Kraft presents a similar problem. And so then I ask myself, why are they having all of these problems? And well, who's covering these tight ends? I love the middle linebacking group in Pittsburgh at times, but it can be frustrating for various reasons. If you've listened to any of Puntori's playbook, or if you've been listening to what I've been saying on All Steelers Talk, I've talked so much about Patrick Queen being an MVP for the Steelers defense this year. And I think when you look at what he's done in terms of running, stopping, and in terms of pass defense, he has been the probably best middle linebacker. But it's not enough, right? So he's been targeted in coverage 37 times and he's allowed 27 receptions and 2 touchdowns, but he also has a pass block, a pass breakup in that time. So you see that, and what that tells me is that he is allowing some receptions, of course, but he's also making some plays on the ball. Contrarily, you have the other player at the middle linebacker position who is heralded for his speed and athleticism in Peyton Wilson, but when it comes to actually shutting down pass plays, so far NFL teams are seeing him as more of an opportunity than something to stray away from, especially when you look at what Patrick Queen has done. So far, Peyton Wilson has been targeted in passing plays 25 times. He's allowed 22 receptions and 2 touchdowns. There's been 137 yards after catch accumulated on those 25 receptions, and those 224 yards allowed on those 22 receptions is leading to an average of 10.2 yards per reception. That's a problem. That is a ginormous problem. And then the only other person who might be in coverage sometimes is Cole Holcomb, but the Pittsburgh Steelers have done everything in their power to get him off the field in obvious passing situations. And, for good reason. He's been targeted 7 times, and there have been 7 receptions made for 55 yards. No touchdowns scored, though, but no passes blocked, no passes broken up, no coverages taken advantage of. Excuse me. Only coverage is taken advantage of when Cole Holcomb is on the field in obvious passing situations. So you look at what the 3 Steelers middle linebackers have done, and those are the 3 players who are primarily tasked with stopping these tight ends in passing plays. Not a very encouraging start, not a very encouraging number and set of numbers going into this matchup. And we've talked so much about this defense and how much they've underachieved, and that talk and conversation has been directed for the most part at the TJ Watts and the Cam Haywards and the Jalen Ramsey and the players who make the most money on this Pittsburgh Steelers defense, which is the most expensive in the league. But the amount of worry that this particular matchup of tight ends versus the Pittsburgh Steelers middle linebackers is worrisome. And I think the Green Bay Packers, Matt LaFleur and his staff already know quite well that this is a problem for the Pittsburgh Steelers. And while I had not considered it before I made my prediction on the All Steelers Talk podcast, I am quite certain that Matt LaFleur and his staff have been keenly aware of this and have been preparing for this moment and have been noticing how porous, how open passing plays are for their tight ends whenever the Pittsburgh Steelers drop middle linebackers into coverage. It's a concerning trend so far that it has to improve. It has to get better. There's been so much conversation about what do the Steelers need to do to add to their team before the trade deadline. I've maintained that defense is not really an area that they can improve or add to via the trade market, but depending on what Tucker Kraft does, depending on what the Green Bay Packers offense does, depending on how Peyton Wilson, Patrick Queen, and company respond to this, it might show that there is a need more pressing in a very specific area than we had previously thought. So as I started this Puntori's Playbook episode, I have a prediction of 21-17 for the Pittsburgh Steelers to defeat the Green Bay Packers. I still stand by it, but I have a feeling that Tucker Kraft and the tight ends in Green Bay are going to have a very productive number on the stat sheet when it's all said and done. And for the Pittsburgh Steelers, if they're going to win this game, if they are going to get that fifth victory of the season, they need Peyton Wilson to shut down Tucker Kraft. They need Patrick Queen to make a pass block or a pass breakup whenever the time calls for it. And they need to have their middle linebackers being a standout group in this game and not the reason that the Green Bay offense is succeeding.
What's up, AST Nation? I've teamed up with DraftKings. The next great touchdown is coming, and you can bet on it. The best way to do so is through DraftKings Sportsbook, where new customers bet $5 and get $300 if your bet wins, paid in bonus bets. Plus, get 3 months of NBA League Pass no matter what. With the bye week behind us, now is the time to get in on the action. Love the thrill of live betting? DraftKings has got you covered. Bet live on in-progress games right as they happen. Then use your bonus bets to stay in on the action and bet DraftKings same-game parlays for a shot at an even bigger payout. And don't worry, if sports betting is not yet available in your state, you're fine. You can still join in on all of the fun with DraftKings Daily Fantasy Sports and have the shot to win cash prizes. New customers bet $5 and get $300 if your bet wins, paid in bonus bets. Plus, get 3 months of NBA League Pass no matter what. Sign up using my promo code AllSteelers and get in on the action only at DraftKings Sportsbook.
I think that is just going to be the matchup to watch when the Sunday night football game gets underway. Well, I think that's going to do it for a weekend edition of Puntori's Playbook. Thank you so much for jumping on for another episode. I appreciate the love. I appreciate the feedback. I appreciate you guys talking a little bit of Steelers football with me every couple of days. So until I'm back next week, you can find everything we do on youtube.com/allsteelerstalk. You can get our podcasts anywhere you subscribe and get those. And as always, you can find our written work at si.com/NFL/Steelers. If you could, please give us a like. You can share with your friends as well. It helps us so much as we're trying to grow and get to 100,000 subscribers here on YouTube. So thank you so much for everything you guys have done to help us get there. We appreciate yins, and until I see you again, be nice, be good, be kind to yourselves, and I'll see everybody soon. Peace.